Welcome to another episode of Car Ride Conversations with Chronically Rye, featuring me. I'm Rye, and we are actually in my car today. Actually, we are reporting live from, you can't really tell, Sunset Cliffs. Because, why am I at Sunset Cliffs, you might ask? Well, it is Monday morning, President's Day, if you will. And I got up this morning and I put my scrubs on and I went to work because I've never worked at a university health system that gave case managers off on President's Day before, and we'll be told the new kid. So I said, well, I'm awake, I'm dressed. I actually don't look like a hot mess like I usually do, so I got me my iced coffee from my Dunkin', my favorite Dunkin' in the neighborhood, and I decided to take my breakfast somewhere with a view. While I was sitting here, I was going through some of your questions that you guys have submitted to the Anonymous Answers app. Some of you guys have been asking me if I put that up regularly or not. That link is actually always open, and if you ever want to access it, you have anything to ask me that you don't want to ask me via DMs, you can access it via the link in my bio, my link tree. It is on there. Also, if you've never checked out my link tree, you can also access pretty much, I think it's now all up to date, any podcast episode that I have ever recorded, any of the articles that I have been interviewed, mentioned in, you want to learn more about my story, that is where to go. So one of those questions, back to where I was coming from with that, was what is a case manager? So for those of you who are new here, just starting out, my name is Ryan. I am a nurse who uses a wheelchair due to a disability called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and I have just started a job back in the hospital as an RN acute care case manager. Now, what the hell does that mean? Hilariously enough, this is the second time I have worked as a case manager. The first time was when I began to require a wheelchair and I had to leave ER nursing. I said, I don't want to leave the hospital yet. I'm not ready. And a friend of mine's mom worked as a nurse case manager, and she knew me and knew my story and was like, hey, I think you would be really good at this job. And I was like, okay, cool. That sounds great. Like, I'll still be in the hospital. I'll, get to be in that environment, but I won't be as hands-on patient care, and I can adjust to my new life as a wheelchair user. So I left the ER, and sorry, I just love San Diego. Dude, man just rode by on a unicycle. Anyway, what the fuck was I even saying? Yeah, so I said, this will be perfect. I can adjust to becoming a wheelchair user. I was hoping that I could continue to work ER part-time when I made that transition, but that didn't happen. Whole other story, whole other time. So I show up to my interview for the first time for a case manager job in 2017, 18, on that time. And we interview, and they're asking all these questions, and at the end of it, they're like, do you have any other questions? I said, yeah. What exactly does a case manager do? Because I had only ever worked in freestanding ERs or small rural community access hospitals at that point in time. I had never worked at a hospital large enough to employ a case manager and had thus never utilized them before. So that's why I did not take it as much of a surprise when I got this question. So a case manager in the hospital setting, we are usually, I'll talk a bit how my last job was set up, and then I'll kind of different how things are run. But a nurse case manager is usually a nurse case manager is a registered nurse who usually has quite a bit of experience under their belt, knows how the hospitals run, and you work as somewhat of a discharge planner. It is your job to interview all of the patients that come in the hospital that may need discharge planning of some sort. So if the patient comes in and they need to be discharged back to their nursing home and they need transportation, we're the ones who set that up. We're the ones who get all of their medical paperwork back to their nursing home. If it's a patient that comes in that needs new nursing home placement, assisted living placement, rehab placement, any kind of discharge placement after they leave the hospital, that is a case manager's job. Usually they can also be social workers, or sometimes there are social workers on the team that also help us with our medical background. They help us with their community resource background for difficult discharges. So back in Southwestern Virginia, we would have a lot of migrant workers that would come in and be injured and maybe not have, maybe they're illegal immigrants, maybe they are uninsured. All of those things are things that case managers are basically the problem solvers of the hospital. If you've got something that is holding a patient in the hospital, a barrier to discharge, the case manager is the one who is going to work on that barrier and getting them out. If you need medical equipment when you discharge, like a wheelchair, crutches, oxygen, you go home on tube feeds or IV antibiotics, any of that, a case manager sets that up as well. We also, we're specialized on different floors. Obviously, like a med-surg case manager might be a little different from an ICU case manager. But in things like mother-baby, postpartum, we also work there, doing things like adoptions, foster home placements, all that good stuff. Another big role, specifically for the nursing side of case management, is something called utilization review. I'm not going to talk a whole bunch about this because it's dry as hell when you're explaining it. I actually really enjoy doing it, but what it is, we basically audit all the patient charts that come through the hospital for every Medicare patient specifically. Also managed Medicare plans, Medicaid plans, all that good stuff. But when you're admitted to the hospital, you're admitted under a certain status. That status is either you are an inpatient or you are an observation patient or an outpatient in a bed. There's lots of different statuses, but those statuses, basically, if you're a Medicare patient, Medicare will only pay for a certain amount of diagnosis codes. If you have a certain diagnosis, your Medicare will pay for this many days in a bed, and the case manager is the one who stays on top of that. Sounds really dull and horrible, and I really hated it when I first started working because I felt like I was on the side of healthcare with like the insurance companies and I'm like the payer source. But that's not really it at all. I'm the trained one who can go in and say, yes, this is a Medicare patient. Yes, they've been here longer than their Medicare plan says that they should be. But I can also go into that medical chart, read it, use my medical knowledge to be able to explain to the insurance company, no, this is what's happening. Here's the barrier. This is why the patient's still there, so that the patient doesn't end up having to pay more money than they need to. That is my favorite part about working as a case manager. All the critical thinking and all the problem solving. I love doing that. And coming from a background of critical access hospitals, rural medicine, freestanding ERs, all I've ever known. And I also was always working night shift. I've always known just like not having all of the equipment that you may need, or just having to constantly think on your feet and constantly problem solve. And that is case management day in and day out. The doctors are coming to me to ask, how do I get this patient home? What's our plan here? Let's develop a plan. And I really enjoyed that part of nursing, and I missed bedside so much, but my body needed a break. It needed a break, and I wanted to find a way that I could still care for my patients and advocate for my patients. And case management is one of the biggest nurse advocate roles that there is, and I'm really excited to learn slowly what the differences are between case management in Southwestern Virginia and case management in Southern California. This town has more than one homeless shelter. I'm already thrilled. Just having like state-funded programs that didn't exist in Virginia. I'm really excited. And everyone loves my hair, which I don't think I would get that same response in Southwestern Virginia. I rolled in the first day, somebody had a pride flag at their desk, and I was like, y'all, we are not in Roanoke County anymore. So yeah, that is the basic gist of what I will be doing as a nurse case manager. If you have any specialized questions, further questions, let me know. We also do hospice. We sit down and we can run patient family meetings to get everyone on the same page with the medical team. I mean, yeah, it's a hard job, but it's rewarding, and I'm really excited. So yeah, you guys have any other questions? You want to learn more? drop your questions below, shoot me a message, and yeah, I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to continue enjoying my coffee and this view, but you guys have a happy Monday.